morning, huh?
Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
I want to call the May 17th Police Pension and Relief Fund meeting to order. I'll dismiss roll call. The quorum is duly noted and the media was notified. I want to ask the board to move two items up. I'd like to deal with the item 11 first. We have Mrs. Rawls here, and she has to go back to work. And then also, the chief is here to answer some additional questions on 7B. So if the board would agree, we'll move those two items up and go in that order. So the first item will be item 11, explore ideas of website for pension fund.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, as you know, we've been discussing the idea of creating a police pension fund website that would, of course, be under the purview direction of the pension board here. And as I explained at the last meeting, I had discussed the situation with a couple of different people. One, of course, being Ms. Melody Rawls here. She works for the Democrat Gazette. And at the last meeting, Mr. Chairman, I think you had suggested to have some sort of letter or brief proposal outlining, and that's what you have in front of you. Basically, and then I'll just explain this and then turn it over to Ms. Rawls or any board member who happens to have any questions. And she has proposed to set up a website similar to Steve's website for one-time charge of $500, and additionally charge, well, in addition to that would be, I think she says here, a URL and a hosting fee of maybe up to $100, a one-time fee up to $100, or maybe it's an annual fee, I think up to $100 a month. And then that would include to post the article and so forth, and then
If you don't mind, I think you misspoke. It's not $100 a month. I'm sure it's $100 a year.
For the domain, actually, it's
Yeah.
gonna be $50 a year for the domain.
okay, for the domain
And the
hosting.
hosting.
Yeah, annually, I thought I'd said, meant to say annually. But anyway, that's the deal. If we want, that would include audio of the meeting. If we want video, and I think it would be an excellent deal. There would be an additional $50 monthly charge for that, and that, of course, would be providing her the audio to upload it or whatever your guys do. So with that,
Can I just ask a question? I understand the one-time fee, but what we're saying is that this would be a monthly fee of $100, correct?
Yes.
That's just to maintain the website.
Yes, and to upload whatever
Right.
is provided.
And then, and also that will take care of the digital audio of the meeting using our equipment or?
Yes, you would have to provide the audio file to me.
Right. And then if we wanted a video, we'd have to use our equipment and then provide that to you, and that'd be an additional $50.
That's correct.
And I think this is right, Steve, that's your equipment, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I just wanted to clarify. I just need to clarify. Any questions, comments, Steve?
I have a few questions. Concerning the video, who's going to provide you with?
That would be up to you all to provide the video to me.
Is the city going to provide that service to this board?
No. We don't have the capability of doing that.
Just out of curiosity, who do you plan to use to obtain the URL for this new website?
I use one-on-one hosting, one-on-one video, website hosting, and I have an account that shares believe it's 200 gigabytes for all the websites that I do as a freelancer.
I just talking about the URL, who's planning on obtaining the URL from, is that gonna be one video?
That'll be one-on-one web hosting, yes.
Well, whose name is the URL gonna be?
I can put it in whichever name is provided to me, so I wouldn't be the owner of that domain, the board would.
What's the name of yours? Or the current?
PolicePensionNews.com. It's a mouthful.
Difficult to remember.
What will it be on the,
You have to,
That's up to you guys.
yeah, we have to give her a name and see if it's available.
That's correct.
I assume you're gonna use a content management system to operate this website. What content management system?
I'll use WordPress.
On your administration of the website, what does that involve?
The administration of it, after it's built, well, someone will send me all the content each month and I'll put it in the appropriate areas of the website.
Any other questions?
I've got another thing. I assume there's gonna be a content, a venue for people to get on there and leave comments.
Yes.
Okay. If that's true, how do you plan to administer the website to ensure that it's not used as just another venue to attract and publicly humiliate members who happen to take an opposing view?
With WordPress, I can install a plugin called Akismet.
I didn't hear you.
I can install a plugin on the WordPress content management system. It's called Akismet, and it handles spam really well. The first comment by any one person has to be approved, and I'll be happy to keep an eye on that and approve those first comments. After that person is determined to be a safe commenter, they can comment freely, but Akismet knows to watch for, you know, extra URLs or profanity or anything like that. And if something does slip by, it can be removed quickly and that person can be marked not to be able to comment.
Well,
First can be what now?
First,
They can be marked so that they can't comment again, that person, so.
well, the first two comments have to be approved by administrative.
Yeah, and I can do that. I maintain so many WordPress sites already at the Democrat Gazette and a couple that I freelanced. It's really easy to maintain that and keep an eye on it.
I guess it'd be up to the board to determine like how many months we wanted to keep on record of the website, or, you know, the length of time things would be available, because you'd want to archive or rotate things off or something.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think it'll probably be a work in progress in terms of, it's like probably much like everything, much like we experienced there on Steve's website, you know. Things come up during the course of time that you need to deal with, just as in any business or any issue that you're dealing with. But, you know, hopefully, work through these issues as they come up and see why we couldn't. But the main thing is, at least in my opinion, is to get it to where there is a website there for members to comment on. There's a website there to post information that members need and want to see. And like Steve, the question related to him is that it won't be a website. The question related to one he asked, it won't be a website where it's used to trash and humiliate people. And if that starts occurring, then it's just something that will have to be dealt with, I guess.
Well, so would the board approve, like, anything that's posted to the website? If it's the city board, I mean, if it's the official board website, then we would approve, like, that maybe there would be some routine things like the minutes and the financial report each month, but anything outside that would take a vote of the board to post on the website, or?
That's an issue that we will need to deal with, you know, before it's set up, obviously, but something along those lines. I mean, I think there needs to be somehow enough flexibility to where, you know, non-controversial things can be posted, like you said.
Yeah, let me just suggest, I don't think we want to be in the position of approving what goes on the website. I think the website is for information, and it will allow members to comment. There'll be a mechanism, and hopefully, you know, going forward, we'll all be professional and courteous in our comments that are posted. So I don't really see that as a problem, and if it arises, we'll deal with it at that point. So, Steve, you had any question?
Yeah, Sarah asked a question that I had, which pertains to it being an official website of this board. My question was whether or not that would require a majority vote, which pretty much answered that. I don't know.
I mean, majority vote to do the service, or to
Majority vote
to decide what goes on the
what
website?
goes on the website.
We're not gonna do it. We'll be here for 5 hours every, we're just not gonna do that. Let's, if we're gonna have an official website, it'll be professional, and if it's not, we'll have to deal with it at that point.
Okay, I have another question for, sorry, I can't remember your name.
Melody.
For Melody. But, will there be provision made for people to post articles on the website? I mean, not just comments, but articles themselves?
I can set that up if if that's what the board would like me to do, I can set that up.
Well, I don't know, on the website that I have, only 2 people ever posted an article other
Yes.
than myself.
Yeah, but I think that ought to be handled through the administrator. I mean, that's the way to do that.
Okay, my last question, I suppose, is, will the city provide legal services to this fund in the event any new pension fund website is subject to any lawsuits pertaining to any articles, comments, or media used on their website?
What did you say now?
Will the city provide legal services to this fund in the event that the new pension fund website is subject to any lawsuit pertaining to the articles, comments, or media used on the new website? And the reason I ask that is because about 2 years ago, I was contacted. I had several websites operating at the time, and I had used a postage stamp photograph of an individual on my website that I got off of a website that claimed that the photographs were free. However, the person who provided that photograph apparently turned around and sold it to some company later on, and a few years later, they determined that I was using it on the website. I wound up selling with them for $750 to keep them from suing me, but that's exactly what they were promising to do.
I think the best way to answer that, but we haven't concluded whether the city's gonna represent this board, or, so I think the answer to that is whoever the board decides to engage would be responsible for any legal issues that arise.
That's all.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Is there a motion to engage, we probably need a sort of a memorandum of agreement.
So moved. I'll make a motion to authorize the expenditure to Ms. Rawls in that amount, and to, I guess, start the preparatory work toward creating the website.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Just a question for Harris, are you doing the 100 or 150 with the video?
Well, good question. I think it's important to, if we can, to provide video. I just don't know from a technical aspect of it what all is involved. I'm assuming she needs the digital video in some format. The city doesn't have the equipment just to.
I mean, we don't have anything like that.
I would authorize, I mean, my motion would be, at this point, not including the video, but I will, if the board pleases, I will start checking on maybe some way to see that happen, because I do think it's important to do that.
Okay, it's a question with the rat, because one, and you, Melody probably is, but uploading a 3-hour video is not easy, and it begins to take capacity of your website. So, I mean, I think you could speak to that somewhat. And I'll just give you an example. When let's say we have a 3-hour board meeting, city board meeting, it takes the length of that meeting to make a copy of that tape, so we can, because people the next day want a copy of the board meeting. So it's not easy. I think I would agree, maybe we explore some technology out there. And then the second thing I was gonna ask, do you think your members go on the website and watch 3 hours worth of, or 4 hours worth of video?
Well, I can speak to that. I know they do. And the reason I know that is because there's a program in cPanel, which I'm sure you're familiar with. It's called Alien Stats or something like that. And you can look at exactly how many people are accessing that file, that particular file.
Yeah, that's why I asked the question.
And there's more people that access that, and for a longer period of time than access our audio. I mean, most people don't access our audio, but I'd say that at least a third of the people who log on to the site access the video.
And it has, the video has audio with it?
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
and that's about 2,000 people a month that access, I mean, not access just the video, access the website.
Okay, so there's a motion, a second, done.
Well, I would like to ask Mr. Hensley if he would change his motion around a little bit to add that you and Rusty kind of coordinate with her, because I'm sure she's gonna have some questions that needs to be, asked, and there needs to be input from what's going, what the board would like to have, and I'm sure you and Rusty would be up on that, so, let's let her kind of get with y'all if she has any questions, or if y'all need, instead of having to go through the whole big rigmarole.
Yeah, hopefully the motion, and someone will be the judge, but hopefully the motion kind of covers that, the preparatory, to start preparatory. I mean, whatever board members, it's gonna be a work in progress.
Well, I'd like to add, and this is, it's not anything that I'm terribly concerned about, but I'm not familiar with this 1-in-1 hosting that you're talking about. But when you buy a URL and pay for hosting, some companies have purchased URL, which in this case I suppose you don't want. You don't actually buy the thing. You buy it, but it's not in your name.
That's correct.
And so if you, and what that prevents you from doing is being able to move the site to another provider without their permission. And so I'd be very leery of, in In other words, I checked with this 1-in-1 to see who
Yes,
actually
sir.
owns
Well,
the
I've been
URL.
using, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I've been using 1-in-1 for about 10 years,
Okay.
and they're very reliable.
Have you purchased a URL and set up a website? of
I've
your own?
purchased about 50 URLs through 1-in-1, always for someone else. I always put it in their name. They own it with the registrar,
Okay, okay,
and I've also transferred
okay.
for people. It's pretty easy, pretty painless process.
Just one last comment, Mr. Chairman. We're rather hopeful that these meetings will get shorter and won't be
Me too.
3 hours.
You got a second on that? Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Good work.
Yeah, ready?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mel.
Thank you. It's good to meet everybody.
It's good to meet you.
Try to,
Yes.
try to get a few more positive stories from your folks over there.
I got no control over that.
I'm teasing, man.
Thank you guys.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Well, now, I have a question. Did that include you and Rusty kind of coordinating it?
Right.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
does.
what I-
Whoever wants to be involved.
It does.
Okay, let's now go to 7B. Report on court fines, fees, and et cetera. And I think there were some questions that, I know there's a memo that, did everybody get that? Kathy?
We had provided that at the last
Last
board
meeting,
meeting,
yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And I think there were, and I wasn't,
You weren't here.
I wasn't
You weren't here.
Yeah, I was gonna
Mm-mm.
say, but I thought there were follow-up questions that Director Adcock had or others had about the fine fees.
We did not include that memo from last meeting back in this packet. I mean, we can go make some copies of it real quick if we need to.
It wasn't we postponed it so you could be here. I think it was at the meeting before the last meeting where you could ask some questions.
Does anybody remember the question?
Well, it was, I mean, Director Adcock, I believe you were asking about the confiscated goods and the,
Did you bring this memo up? Yeah, the chief added it up.
okay, he's got it. Because we were wondering, you know, why it was just decreasing year over year over year.
That was.
And that was one of the main questions, and I think
Then
you were.
we also want to know how it compared with what the county was doing, because the county seems to be receiving money from that, and this pension board's not.
Well, I think if I remember correctly, the main question that I thought we were trying to address was how much money the courts assess in the way of fines and fees versus how much they collect.
That was my question, not last meeting, but one before. I said, get some type of scale, seeing what they collected in the fees and the additional fees associated with a warrant or anything else versus their court fees. You know, they only get a certain percentage of their additional fees paid, and I wondered how many of the court fees were paid.
Well, the problem, I think, was that, in other words, if they assess $100,000 worth of fines a year, if they only collect like $5,000 worth of fines for payment, I think the other go, that's taken away from this board's potential income. And so we were trying to check to see just exactly how much they do collect and how much is outstanding.
And since last month, I have a new question, and that is of the $50 of parking in the yards. There has been 1,800 tickets written for parking in the yards, and I understand that some of that goes to the police. And I'm wanting to know if any of that would come to this board.
I actually got a breakdown on that. I can go print it out. I think it's like 45 cents or something like that. What happens is there's the court cost and all comes off first. I think the total that the city gets on that's $4.50, and 10% of that goes to the board, so it's like 45 cents, I think, per ticket. That's paid.
Well, I think that was another question we had, is whether or not the fines and fees, in other words, if if the amount the court assessed was a fee that this board should receive, then it should come ahead of, or at least that would be my thinking, but it would come ahead of the fines that the court imposes for, yeah, for other things, for penalties, so. In other words, let's say that out of a fine of $200, $50 of it is court fees, which would include us. Well, the $50 should be paid before the other $150 was paid by the individual, and then if the $150 was collected in the court, I mean, that would be up to the court.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, but I thought that the way it worked is that if it wasn't specifically designated for something else, then 10% of it goes. And so I think those court costs go first. I mean, we don't get a share of the court costs, because specifically that amount has to go to the court and to the admin of justice, and there was a huge study,
Yeah,
especially last year with the.
But that's another fee along with the fee that we would receive.
Okay, I got the questions right in front of me, I'm sorry. So the first question is, how much confiscated / seized money is there?
At this point, and I got these a couple of days ago, we can do a pick run, and we're running a computer program to see actually how much cash we have stored. The problem will be we'll have to go through it and see how much is a seized, subject to forfeiture, that's stored that manner, how much is, there's really, when you're talking about the cash in the property room, there's 3 pockets of money. There's one pocket that is found, stored, and so forth, that's governed by one statute. There's confiscated but not subject to a forfeiture. That may be smaller amounts that we're not going to file forfeitures on. They may come as a rest of a gambling house or, you know, those kind of things. And then there's the seized funds that are subject to administrative action on forfeitures. The confiscated money that's not seized is the money that is transferred periodically to the pension fund. The first pot, which is found or unclaimed, goes to the general fund, and then the forfeiture money, once an administrative action is completed and the money is awarded, goes into the 2 different drug funds. So we can do a pick run and see how much cash we got stored, but we'll have to go back through each of the property tax and see how much is in there. Just on an accounting mechanism, there's in our seized fund accounts, in the federal account, there's $66,702, and in the state seized funds, there's $64,655. And those are monies that have already been awarded pursuant to the court action in either a federal or state drug forfeiture action, and that's our equitable sharing distribution. The total amount being, under state statute, the prosecutor gets a percentage, the participating agencies get percentages, and so forth, and that's that way on the federal stuff.
And then what is left over goes to the fund, is that correct?
It goes to the seized money fund, and they'll use that for things like.
Yeah, it's defined by statute when a forfeiture, in a drug case, when a forfeiture is awarded, it's administrative court action awarded by, and it's governed by either the federal statute of how it may be dispersed or the state statute. And they're both audited by the drug director's accounts and by DEA. And you maintain those in separate accounts, and the statutes provide for what the funds can be dispersed for. You can use it for training, it's all law enforcement purposes. It can be technology, it can be training expenses, it can be buy money, it can be several different things.
But my question is, well, maybe not specifically, but what money's actually cash, stored money actually comes to us?
The money that comes is by statute, money that we, is defined as confiscated or seized, that's not out of that Controlled Substances Act side.
Gotcha.
So if we were to hypothetically rent a bootleg house and they had $250 in cash and we confiscated it, once it no longer has an evidentiary value and the detectives sign off, then that money would come to the pension fund. And they periodically do the inventories in the property sweep that, put it together, and make it a possible treasury.
I noticed here, this is just taken from our monthly, Sarah's monthly report, the confiscated goods portion, and I don't know if that included any seized funds or not, but in 2011 was $3,800, and then it jumped up to about $4,000 in 2012, and then so far year to date is $17,000. I guess it would seem to me that 3,000 and 4,000 would be pretty low, and then of course 17,000 is a whole lot more, and I'm sure there's some reason for that. And along with that, I don't really know if we are still having this company that was set up a few years ago to dispose of this online, or how we're doing it now.
The auctions, and it's difficult to project a revenue stream on those campaigns because it depends on the enforcement actions on the cash and what we stumble into. And then on the property, it's kind of like anything else. It depends on what we get our hands on and then what people want to pay for it at the auction. But we have a couple of mechanisms on the auction. One is we still use a company called propertyroom.com. They're an internet auction company, and I believe they're in Florida. Operate like eBay. A lot of property rooms around the country use them. They have certain size minimums, box minimums. Property room keeps an inventory of when stuff is releasable for auction, and then when they get set amounts, they will ship it to propertyroom.com. They put it up, post it on their auction site, and then they send us checks off the auctions. That'll vary. Your revenue stream is going to be inconsistent depending on how much goes down there for sale and then whether anybody buys it.
Well, and weapons and stuff are not included.
No, weapons are different. This is just, stereo equipment, whatever's in there that comes out. Weapons are an entirely different matter. We have two different avenues there. Number one, we do not sell handguns, assault weapons, any weapon that by statute is an illegal weapon. Sawed-off shotguns, serial numbers filed, those kind of things. We destroy those. Sporting weapons, long guns and so forth are sold at auction. We used Brad Woolley, he's a licensed firearms dealer. He wants lots of about 150 at a time just to make it viable for auction. So when we collect, we get sign-offs in the property room, and they're through evidentiary and so forth. Property room assesses, do they fit that definition of a sporting weapon, and is it a legal weapon, and so forth. And when we collect about 150, then we call them, they include that in their next auction, and then that money goes down.
So when we asked last year about the low amount, the response we got was that there had not been very many auctions.
It could be because we have to get releases. If they're stored as evidence, we gotta wait till the trial plays out. When it comes back, and then you gotta collect the amount, and they've gotta be viable weapons. The auction company, wants serviceable weapons or weapons that are gonna have some value for sale. And a lot of them are not functional, or some of them are in pieces and those kind of things. And then some of them we just have to keep for a long, long time because they were used in offenses that take us a while to get through.
Just out of curiosity, you said we destroy assault weapons.
Mm-hmm.
Can you define an assault weapon? What's classified as an assault weapon?
We don't resell AK-47s, MP9s, MP5s. If it's an automatic, if it's got a clip, multi-fire clip, if it has an option for automatic or modification to automatic like that.
If it's got a modification for fully automatic fire, it'd be illegal anyway without a federal firearm.
Without a federal firearm, yeah.
But I was just wondering, is the M16 classified as an assault weapon?
Yeah. We don't see very many of those, but we don't see very many of those. The AKs are.
I figured that, but
Yeah.
One might slip in there, and I sure hate to see a good M16 destroyed, but.
And there are times that when you go through a trial, the judges on disposition of trial may direct, as a result of their determination, they may direct us for a certain disposition of property. We we've seen that happen before, where there have been conversions to
So
agencies
a
for other
judge,
use.
a judge could award it to the department for,
Yes.
for use of its officers.
Chief, I think I may know the answer to this, but since handguns are legal and not classified as illegal weapons, do you think we might start auctioning those?
I would prefer not to. While they are legal, I think you will recognize the fact that they come into our possession at great hazard to our personnel. And I would just, my preference would be that we just kind of bite that one and get rid of as many of them as we could.
I suspected that. Okay.
Okay, anything else for the chief? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
I thought you'd just come in here to visit with us. I didn't.
Well, I came in to see if y'all had any tenants. I don't see any, so
I didn't what?
Good looking.
Tim.
See y'all. See ya.
Okay.
Where you can get some.
Was that the only question that we had on that, 11B, was the question you asked? Mr. Chairman? I thought I'm still curious to know what the status of it. Of course, I'm not gonna be here next month, but I'm still curious to know what the status of the jail's fines and things is, as to how much they collect, as to how much they just leave.
Have we not provided the information? I thought we did.
I gave everything
It
this
was in that report.
Yeah, it was in the report we
2
gave
months
last
ago. I mean, I can send it out or.
You know, and one of the issues we
Month,
said is
yeah.
like, it's a,
It should.
you know, the judge may waive the warrant and lieu of time served and other things like that, so that those things are out of our.
When Ms. Adcock had suggested that we interview the judge who is running for re-election to determine whether or not we want to support him. I don't, I'm sure not we all want to support him, because I'm not sure.
That's a difference.
On this 45 cents, on these talking tickets, where does the rest go? I mean, these tickets are $50.
And the majority of that is court costs. I'll go get the breakdown, I've got it, because I asked, I had somebody follow up on that the other day.
$25 is court cost.
Well, there's in a jail, some goes to the jail, some goes to court costs, and we get very little, and we're
And is
actually
that the
having
same
to.
for all our talking tickets now?
The other parking tickets aren't subject to court costs, because they're treated differently. The court costs are criminal violations. The parking yards are criminal violations because they're coming under the nuisance code.
Well, I got a question on the court costs. I mean, who gets the court costs? I suppose the court does.
Mainly it's the administrative justice fund. I mean, that's, the county gets virtually all of it. It gets to the state. It pays for deputy prosecutors and secretaries to judges and that entire fund. That's an oversimplification.
Well, I think the board thought that the city of Little Rock General Fund was gonna get part of that parking ticket, parking yard money.
Ain't much.
So we're getting $4.50 out of $50. And then the judge is reducing it down to $25 and adding court costs of $25 when they go to court. So how is that a win for the city?
Well, remember, Director Adcock, we didn't get into this to really make money. And remember, I talked about that early on. I mean, it was, as you championed, it was to clean up neighborhoods. So I never looked at this as a money-making venture for the city.
I didn't even try, I saw a report that we've done 1,800 and we haven't even covered the city yet.
Well, another thing is that while we may not have gotten into the parking in the yard to make money, there are many other fines and forfeitures going through the court systems, and apparently they have to pay court costs on all of it. And it just seems to me that the statute was written to provide us with funds for us to make money. And to make money off of those fines and forfeitures. So it seems very relevant to this board to determine what those fines and forfeitures are and how much of them are being collected.
It's gonna be hard to do, because, you know, the judge can do whatever he wants to do with it whenever he gets somebody in his court. He can reduce it and dismiss it and everything, it'd be hard to add it all up.
You
to
can't
put it on
really,
paper.
you can't really do anything with court costs, so those are mandatory.
Well, they're probably gonna get the court costs.
Yeah.
Well, and
I'm sure
here's
that
the
they do.
breakdown, 25%, or $25 of the 50. 25 goes to the court cost to the Administration of Justice Fund off the top. Then $20 goes to the county jail fund off the top. That leaves $5, of which 50 cents goes to the police pension fund and $4.50 goes to the city. And we actually are having to pay police to go into the system to match the ticket with they're the only ones that can search to match the license plate with the vehicle in order to put the, enter the ticket to a person's name. And so we're having to pay police officers to do that. And there are even some overtime hours involved in that right now, which we're trying to get resolved, because this is really costing us, actually. And then there's a lot that are not found because they're not, you know, they're vehicles that aren't registered, or they're, you know, so then housing is researching to try to figure out who they belong to. Or we've had cases where someone will come in and pay a ticket that was never able to be entered into the system because we didn't have an owner. So then they send it back to police to tell them who the owner is. They get it into the system to enter the ticket so we can match it and do the dispersion. So there have been a lot of meetings trying to resolve this process because it's actually costing the city. But it's not a money-raising thing. It's a neighborhood improvement issue. It's not, it wasn't a money-generating deal. It was a deal to improve neighborhoods. But it's actually costing the city right now.
Was that breakdown by state, is that breakdown per statute, state statute? And it's not.
And it has to do too with the way the ordinance was written, which court it falls under, isn't that part of it? If it was strictly parking, would it be different, but it's written in environmental court or something?
It's a nuisance action, yeah.
And it's environmental court, and part of that is what dictates these fees at the top.
Can that be changed? Can another ordinance be written or something? Is the city doing all the work? How is it all the money? Why the city would go to the trouble and effort of doing all this and.
Well, again, because the point of it was not to raise revenue, it was to improve neighborhoods.
If there is revenue being generated from it, I would think that you'd want to direct it back to the city where it's at.
Well, what happened was that the board set the fine at $50. And we set it that because we wanted to get the people's attention. Well, as soon as we started issuing the tickets, the judge started adding the $25 on top of the 50. So now all of a sudden it was a $75 deal. And I said, that's not what the board wanted. So we took it down to 25. And so that's part of the issue there, Rusty, is that we're not, it's a $50 fine, and it's to get people's attention, but we really ended up taking it down to 25, so it wasn't a $75 deal. And that does impact us there.
But then the other issue was parking fine versus nuisance. And that, I think, is what kicked in the county jail piece. Is that correct?
Well, I'm just curious, why would we have to pay a county jail fees on something that no one can go to the county jail on? I mean, it's a parking ticket, for Christ's sake. It's not a warrant for someone to arrest on felony charges.
What goes through environmental?
No, because of the nature of the statute.
Huh?
It's because of the nature of the statute. It's not a, you're dealing with parking on private property, so it's not parking in the public right of way where we have greater control. You can just make it a parking ticket. So we had to make it a nuisance. if we made it a nuisance, we made it a criminal offense. When we made it a criminal offense, it picked up all the cost procedures.
I'll bet Doc likes that, though.
Yeah, they're doing a lot better than we are on this new
Okay.
deal.
Well, it seems to me that the Forest City would provide service, it should be, well, I don't know if it should be in all cases, but actually, little nuisance cases like this are also revenue neutral. In other words, if it doesn't pay for itself, I feel like it should be an active, but that's just my thinking.
Well, but again, the point of it was not about revenue, it was about improving neighborhoods.
Well, yeah.
Abating
But you
nuisance.
have, but if you keep throwing money at little nuisance problems, eventually you'll run out of money. And the nuisances will still be there.
Yeah, but if you happen to live next door to a nuisance, you appreciate it being abated on the other hand.
Okay.
I don't live in Little Rock.
Okay, let's go to item 3. I know y'all have learned all you want to about guns and websites.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All right, what you have in front of you today is the thick quarterly book that we always have, 1 month lag after the quarter. Obviously, we don't go through all the fact sheets that are included in that presentation. That's for your review at night. Some would say kind of required sleeping material, but as usual, we do have that included into the post-quarterly report. April was a good month. If you open up and see your front page there on the scorecard, total market value of the account was $42,988,310. A little over $20,000 of accrued interest, $23,709 brings you to $43,012,19. Total drop balance as the end of April 30th, 2012 was $22,731,689 with a few change tacked on the end. April was a good month for the plan, up 49 basis points versus the market being down about 0.25%. The difference between what the overall bogey return did versus what your portfolio can be attributed into your other category, which is your mezzanine, your Goldman commodity opportunities, and your real estate. And then your active managers contributed very nicely compared to what the indexes did. The indexes, as you can see in the comparison, Wilshire 5000 was down 71 basis points, S&P with income about 0.58%, down 61 basis points. So you really had good momentum in not only your fixed income active managers, but also your equity active managers contributing to a nice positive push for the month. Year to date, as of April 30th, 6.34% versus, which double check that number a couple of times, 6.34% on the index return as well. That puts you at an annualized since inception return of 673 versus 527. April really was, I would say, a challenging month to get into the positive territory. You did see some of the Greece situations continue to rear back up, and that's why you had a slight decrease coming out of your equity indexes, the Wilshire and the S&P 500. You saw the fixed income rates really go from where we hit 220 on the 10-year, slide back beneath that 2% level on the 10-year Treasury, and where we sit as of this writing, 176 on the 10-year this morning. So you're continuing to see a little bit of push, money flow coming back into the fixed income sector. The 30-year bond, which was over 3% for the quarter, now coming back down to below 3% at 289 as of this writing. So you're continuing to see a lot more push going up to the safer securities, and that can be attributed primarily due to the European markets, beginning with obviously Greece, who is continuing to unwind some talks through their bailout process. Looks like an exodus out of the euro may be forthcoming, although they stated this morning that Merkel likes Greece to remain a part of the European Union. France had an election. Sarkozy got voted out. They voted in the second socialist president in a couple of decades. It'll be interesting to see how he and Merkel get along, because there's been more or less the driving force in some of the European bailout packages. Domestically, things have continued to kind of move right along. Jobs, it looks like we're in kind of a range. Job numbers came out this morning, no surprise there. GDP was slower than expected. We came out, the first quarter numbers were a little bit below where they were expected, causing a little bit of a sell-off. We're continuing to see consumer confidence kind of hang in to the right levels. One thing that has trended down is commodities, but your commodity fund has done nicely. I think it's up 2% year to date, where you've had, the trailing 12 months on silver is down 18%, gold's about 9%, and oil as of lately coming off of the 104 type highs that we had over in the quarter down to the 93 range now, so about an 8% market move for your oil. So precious metals and energy have really been soft, but you continue to be positioned well. The Goldman guys continue to offer some alpha inside of that return. We had an opportunity to go down to Houston, as we outlined a couple of meetings ago, to go check on do an on-site due diligence visit with your mezzanine manager, and that's Capital Point. The visit went well. We had about a 2-hour visit. Saw the facilities, all the buildings, met with the CFO, the CEO, the controller, who's the number 2 behind the CFO, as well as one of their managing directors. Received some good news that when Eric Doyle from Capital Point was here, gave some updates that we expect to kind of continue to get into that 75%, 80% return capital by year end. As of that visit, they had signed an LOI agreement with the Eagle Lake acquisition. That means they are within a 30-day window to get that investment sold out. So if that actually does occur, which having an LOI is a good indication that it will occur, about 75% of the fund will then have been paid back, principal plus interest. When the CFO was very helpful, organized and visit with Sarah, that she's going to be available anytime to kind of go over your numbers, make everything feels good. We received an annual copy of their report, their annual audit, excuse me. Everything was in good standing there, and their audit was performed by UHY LLP, which is a very big name in the private equity mezzanine finance. So certainly good to have a copy of that, and felt comfortable meeting the team in place. Since the end of April, May has kind of come in very similar to what May did last year. We've had a little bit of a pullback, probably about 3% month to date thus far in the S&P 500 index. Again, that's kind of going over to what you're seeing in Europe. Some elections taking place, as well as some of the issues that may be coming out of China and some India, where some slowdowns would occur. This is, as everyone knows in this room, an election year. Election years tend to be pretty positive for the markets. We continue to watch that. Now that it appears that we've got the Republican nominee, you'll probably see the ads obviously flare up a little bit, and we'll see kind of where that takes and where Wall Street may position its feelings on the presidential election. Debt ceiling, you'll recall last summer that was a big issue, going through and resetting the debt ceiling. Right now, the Speaker of the House, Vanner, has made some mentions that it'll freeze any type of budget issues without having some other things worked out first. So we don't expect, well, I would say we would expect the debt ceiling issues to kind of occur like they did last time, and that is going to be a lot of banter back and forth. So it'll be interesting how the markets respond. Usually the second time around is a little bit different from the first time, because they've already dealt with that, they've shrugged off the news, and now they kind of know what to expect coming out of Washington. And I don't think anyone expects a really clean process in that regard. Flipping through one page, a new thing that was added at Sarah's request that we just began providing to the city DVDC plan. I think this may answer some questions or generate some new ones, one or the other. So this is for the month, your beginning market value of March 31st, and then kind of your second to last item there is your ending market value as of April 30th. In between, it shows contributions into the plan, withdrawals out of the plan, interest and dividends gained during that month, changes in accruals, unrealized gain loss, and then your market value. And then the last number there is kind of the increase decrease of the market value. One thing to note, that unrealized gain loss showing $4.5 million is since inception. There's not a way to distinguish an unrealized gain for the month, because it may be something that you bought years ago that's still going to the unrealized gain. So to put it on a month-to-month basis, the system simply can't calculate that. If we go ahead and flip,
that's since inception.
That's since inception.
Okay, so now on the future ones, though, you'll have the April 30th balance at
That's
the top,
correct.
so it'll be the change for the month.
That's
the
correct.
unrealized gain.
Correct,
So this
yeah.
is since inception for the first one, but is it, or is this?
No, the
No, this is
unrealized
since
gain will
March.
be since,
Okay.
yeah. That is since inception unrealized gain. That number will change
Right.
month to month. but it won't be for the month. It'll just be
Okay,
kind of a
okay.
continued process. You know, we could,
But when I,
that
well,
question's been posed before, and
I
it's
guess
not,
because when I do the financial report, y'all have a copy of the packet?
Yeah, they do.
Let's look at, just, all right, so look at look at 10A,
you know,
and then go to the second page where it says analyze gain or loss. That 43, it's line 41. Line 41, the 43,996 and then the 1,871,000. That's the change, the 43,996 is the change from March to April.
mhm.
And then the 1,871,000 is the change from December 31st, 2011 to April. Is there not a way to make that?
I'll check. I was told that, you know, for the standards they have, they keep it going through exception. They only call it a realized loss once the transaction occurs.
Well,
or
and that's
realized
true,
gain or
it's
loss.
only realized.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But
Going
the
through
change in
standards.
unrealized gain or loss is what impacts
Yeah.
their income.
Yeah,
I mean, because you don't,
sure. No, absolutely. I'll see if that report may be available at a different level for us and go
Okay.
forward with that. We'll
Okay.
certainly
because
get with our
that's
back
really
office.
kind of more what I wanted to,
Yeah.
to
Get
show for them.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
This is an addition to the,
Okay,
that's your,
yeah, we'll talk to Jeannie about that.
Okay, if you flip through a few more pages, the end of tab 1 shows our pie chart. Again, that is all of your positions that you're skipping over now and kind of putting into a picture. Continuing the trend, 47% of the portfolio is in equity. If you're looking at 11 o'clock and 2 o'clock, on the pie chart, you see your value to growth. Still tilted into that growth area by a margin of 14.25 to 10.25. Growth has continued to outperform value, about 13% type gains year to date in the growth area, especially in large cap versus maybe 5 in the value space, or probably below that now at more or less in the 4% area. International equity sitting in a good range, 4.49%. We're continuing to see that most money managers are allocating in between the 5 and 15% for international. That's probably prudent at some point in time. We just think with the headwinds that you're in Europe now, sitting in this range is good. You have to remember, in the international equity, you also have emerging equity, which we still continue to like a lot of the emerging market equities. I've said the fact before that 86% of the world's population resides in emerging market nations. Those are nations that don't have the debt problems that developed Europe, or the issues that we went through in 2008, maybe going through at some point in the near future, or distant future. They have very low debt to GDP type countries. We're talking about South Korea, Taiwan, and some of those nations that are really going through a nice growth period over there overseas. Around to 9 o'clock on the pie chart, you see 1955 as other. That is represented as the real estate, mezzanine, and Goldman Fund. Continue to look down at 6 o'clock sector. That is going to be your REITs with your real estate investment trust, as well as your oil and gas plays, which are going to encompass your MLPs, your master limited partnerships, which just for purposes of going back over that, that is the pipeline infrastructure of the United States that pushes and pulls oil and gas transmissions, and they get paid based on volume. Cash in the account at 64 basis points, so we have some money, in work. While there is not a lot of yield into the fixed income markets, we're still looking for other ways to increase yield into the plan. That's why we have the allocation to MLPs and to REITs and to some of your other assets, looking for some to be non-correlated, as well as generating income. And having that income component provides a little bit of stability into the fund. If you go over to tab 2, we've kind of got your manager lineup. And speaking of fixed income, that's the first section there. And one thing I would like to point out, if you look at your 4th item down in the intermediate fixed income category, you see Goldman Sachs Strategic Income Fund. Year to date, these are all as of the end of the quarter, March 31st, you see was up 4.64%. If you recall, that position, as well as all the positions in there, are to encompass a diversified fixed income portfolio. That is built in place to take advantage in shifts in the interest rates. Again, we saw a move from 188 to 220 in the quarter, now pulling back. So some of your funds that did really well, like JP Morgan Core Bond Fund, which was up 7% for 2011, the way they were positioned with U.S. Treasuries when you had that large shift in the 30-year Treasury, took advantage of it. You can see now they're lagging only at 76 basis points, where the Goldman Strategic Income Fund was not really positioned for a 30% move in treasury prices, now has done well. So that is why we continue to build a diversified portfolio, ranging from low duration to core bonds to total return bonds to strategic income, because the fixed income markets, as we're in a historically low interest rate environment, we think will continue to be volatile, and that is trading in that range, probably on the low end of 1.5 to the high end of 2.5. 1% move on 10 years is a large move. It doesn't seem much when you're talking 2.5, 1.5, but on a relative scale, that's a large percentage change. So having that well diversified, your building block portfolio kind of coming to the crest of where you want to have some more diversified fixed income is certainly benefiting the plan well, and it contributed to a nice month also for this month as well as the quarter. Moving on down the line, you see real estate and Capital Point Partners, that's giving you your market values there. Going through your managers, you have your active managers continue to do really nicely. One thing I didn't talk about this meeting, I think we spoke about it the previous one, was a lot of the rally that has taken place in the first quarter was more or less, it was across the board rally, but the ones that returned the most were low quality type vehicles, low quality stocks, meaning if a publicly traded company had a debt assigned to it or had publicly debt outstanding, it was trading in the C-type range. Those were 15% returns were coming out of, versus your really solid A-plus companies were coming in the 5%. So really that makes a difficult market for an active manager to do well, but all your active managers really have. 2011 was kind of a year where passive outperformed active. What we've seen in 2012 is an opposite. So that just continues to go with the theory of core satellite, which is pairing off active managers along with passive managers. And kind of going through the list, you see Goldman mid cap 12.68% for the quarter, Fidelity low price 13.97, moving down along JP Morgan growth 16.69, and then of course looking at your oil and gas REITs kind of across the board. What they've done for you really on your 3-year numbers have been exceptional. Your annualized numbers in the 26, 32, 27, 34 percentile. The Williams being the anomaly, they're up 79% annualized. And then going through the bottom range, your international managers did well for the quarter, almost 15% for Colombia, and then your emerging markets passive index there just shy of 14%.
Do you want to kind of reassure them on the JP Morgan line, or?
Yeah, core. Yeah, so you have JP Morgan's in the portfolio, and the equity component, large cap growth, and fixed income component of core bond. They've been in the news lately. Primarily, I don't think you would have as much attention drawn to this right now if Jamie Dimon wasn't such an outspoken critic of financial reform. He's been very against Dodd-Frank regulation, Basel III, and some of the other bills that are sitting in D.C. that have a lot of blanks to be filled in. Part of the process of Dodd-Frank is to really try to eliminate the risk some of these banks are taking on their proprietary trading desk, and that is their prop trading desk where the firm makes money, has no client money involved. It's just JP Morgan's house money, how they're making that money work, and how they're putting in their hedges. They took a $2 billion loss, which in the scheme of things is not a large number to JP Morgan, which is now one of the largest banks in the world. And you put that in contrast with what Bank of America did earlier this week, and that is forgiving about $11 billion of mortgage loans out there. So while they were forgiving revenue coming in the form of $11 billion, JP Morgan took a $2 billion loss. We expect that loss to increase a little bit, and the rationale behind that is when a bank still has to unwind paper and you're a trader sitting on the other side of that trade, you kind of smell blood in the water. Those guys know they'll need to unwind some more of those positions, and you can imagine that if you were going to buy that for 95 cents on the dollar yesterday, and you find that news today, your bid moved down to 90 or below. So that's just the way it works. All those guys are in there making money.
JP Morgan, their stock is being adjusted as a result of this loss. It doesn't change anything for this plan as it relates to any assets that are managed, because our assets are separate and are not tied to the performance of JP Morgan stock.
And that's the point I wanted to make. I wanted to make sure everybody knew that $2 billion loss had no impact on the portfolio.
The only impact on the portfolio would be if JP Morgan is a position in any of the other funds, which would be so minute, say in the Strategic Value Dividend Fund, or in any of the indexes. That would be the only impact, because they would own JP Morgan as a specific position. But it'd be so minute in total consideration of the total portfolio that it would have very little impact. Okay. Any questions?
Do you feel, still feel comfortable with the allocation regarding PRISA capital point goal?
Yeah, the PRISA has performed nicely for you. You're seeing a lot more attention going into some real estate funds kind of as we speak. You're seeing some other companies out there dive into that market. That continues to do well. I think the Goldman portion of you gives you a nice, another non-correlated asset class. And the mezzanine debt, we should be getting into that cycle now where you're winding down. I think if 08 wouldn't have happened, you probably already would have received all P&I back on that fund. That 08, in their words, extended them out about another 18, 24 months as some of that liquidation markets kind of froze up, where there weren't a lot of buyers to buy some of the assets in the fund. You know, it has provided nice current yield. They've done a good job. You know, when that cycles through and does eventually pay out P&I as expected, you know, will we reallocate that into another mezzanine debt fund? Probably not. We find some other way to put that money at work, and that would just simply be to the percent of the plan as is now, and things changing in that nature. So, you know, when that money will come due, we'll take a look at what the account looks like, what the market looks like at that time, and reallocate based on market conditions and needs of the plan.
How does some of those less liquid type investments impact the fund at the point that they were able to consider merging with Lockheed?
Yeah, so putting it in the less liquid asset, investment, you know, it's a company that they bought. You know, that's what mezzanine financing is. So it's simply finding a buyer on the other side. Some of the plans, and you've kind of gone through the portfolio holdings when Eric was here, and I think when Kevin did it last time as well. They're still going to have some holdings that they're going to be trying to unwind and wait for the right timing. The good news is, I think all but one are paying nice current flow, current income into the plan. So, you know, while those investments are still being held, they're still paying dividends in the form of the cash coupons. That's part of the structure of the mezzanine debt.
I agree with everything both said. If you merged, there is no secondary market. Okay. So,
Well, yeah.
so the securities that you hold that are in that fund, maybe paying interest, are marketable, but they're only as good as whoever's willing to come in and make a bid. So they're an illiquid asset. So the three question Ferris asked, the three alternative asset classes, commodity, PRISA, and this. Commodity's liquid. PRISA's relatively liquid, meaning very short or liquid. This is illiquid, right? This allocation was a good allocation. It was a sizable allocation when the fund was larger. As we approach periods when drop is withdrawn from the account, or the point that you decide you want to do something different long term, this will be an issue we'll have to address. It's not a problem, it's just this is the nature of the security. And you would not, I would tell you this, you would not like the bids. Okay? Or we wouldn't enjoy telling you the bids. Because the secondary markets are usually for private individuals, private investors, and private investors, when, as Bo referenced a moment ago, when JP Morgan has a problem, the other guy smelled blood in the street was his comment, which is right. Those guys recognize there's a distressed seller. That's what they would view somebody here, because typically you hold those to maturity, and the idea that you want to get out would suggest that you're anxious to get out. And if you're anxious to get out, then typically you're motivated and you get a price that's below what you'd like to traditionally see in an open market environment. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay, any other questions? All right.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Keep it on, you're going down these stairs.
Yeah, you gotta be careful at all times.
Take care.
See y'all.
See y'all.
spill.
All right, next approval of April minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minute.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Next report from Tom Carpenter.
I think, if I may, first thing I'll pass around is a draft of a letter of engagement, which is noted as A, 5A, so you can pass those around. It's a rather simple letter of engagement, I'll probably go through it, give most of it.
Mr. Chairman. I would like to make a motion that we do not use the city attorney as our board attorney due to the fact that the conflict of interest, his workload is to a point where I don't think it would be feasible for him to take on more. And I would just like to make that motion that we do not use him as our attorney.
I'd second that motion, and I'd also like to say that
There's a motion and a second, now I'll open it up for discussion.
well, I'd also like to say this is nothing against Mr. Carpenter.
No,
I
no,
think he's
not
an
whatsoever.
excellent attorney. But like Don said, I have a problem with the conflict of interest thing, and I don't think you can understand that. But, that's it.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know where this came from, but anyway, I would like to allow Mr. Carpenter to review the contract that just submitted to us. And I think there would be an appropriate discussion in terms, we brought up the last meeting in terms of the time demand and so forth. So I would just leave it at that, speaking against the motion.
I would also like to speak against the motion also. So Tom is a great attorney, and I watch him on the Government Channel all the time. Every city board meeting, you do a fine job. This fund's trying to save money. We spent $80,000 in attorney fees 1 year. It's underfunded fund. We need to save all the money we possibly can. I don't see the potential of a long workload to the city attorney in the future. I don't see that being a big workload as it has been in the past, but he's a very great attorney, and if we can save funds some money, I'm for that.
Okay, I'm gonna let Tom go through the motion is still on the table, but I'd like to let Tom go through the memo.
The letter of engagement basically says that our office will represent the fund. It notes that the first priority of the office is to the city, the mayor, the manager, and the various departments. We'll do what you ask us to do in terms of reviewing statutes or contracts or anything else that comes up. If we don't have the required expertise, the example I give is opinion as to federal or state tax liability. We'll let you know so that you can obtain counsel who does have such expertise. If you have a situation in a state where you want to file suit against the city, we will decline the fund. We need to seek other counsel. We understand the arrangement that you've got with Contact Rock, and when I was drafting this initially, I started to try to take what was a letter that they had written and try to mesh the two of them, and then I got to thinking, I really don't need to do that. I mean, if y'all, this is for us, and if y'all want to use us, fine, and then if you want to use somebody else, that's fine. We just need to let you know that if at any point you wish to use another firm, Contact Rock or a private lawyer or whatever, we'll do everything we can legally possible to assure that any information and files are shared. The fee arrangement is about as good as you can get. We will not assess any legal fees. We do ask for reimbursement if there's litigation costs that should come up, such as depositions and things of that nature. I do not set a definite term to the agreement, say it can be concluded at any time by either party in writing, just saying we'd like to have a new counsel. And then the second page says if it's acceptable, please note your agreement. I've got the original for signature if y'all wish to enter into this agreement.
I think, can I say something? I think that if any issues are brought up before this board, we're gonna know ahead of time whether it's gonna be a conflict. And if it is, then it's something that we would address with the legal counsel and not. The city attorney is pretty obvious. There will be certain things, if there are, we'll address them with the law, the legal counsel that we have away from Tom. And that's not taking anything away from Mr. Carter, but I don't see a problem.
Okay,
Tom, is this the same agreement that you have with the fire pension board?
We just represent the fire pension board. We don't have an agreement with this.
But it's along the same lines that you do?
Right.
okay, question, Tom. Are you gonna be the attorney?
Kim Chavis is actually gonna be who will be at the regular meetings. I started to have her come this time, and I thought, well, let's get this issue taken care of first. Kim is the attorney who represents the Fire Pension and Relief Fund and has done so since Melinda left. She used to be on the Legislative Council, and so has some unique abilities to find uncodified statutes that impact the pension funds, which is something I'd like to mention to you in a minute, whether y'all use us or not. So that's who will be the manager.
I just thought about this, and I'm really conflicted on this piece, to be honest. But Rusty is one of the finest officers that I know. But if by some chance he just did something that just he ended up having to have some disciplinary action, and he then appeals that to civil service. I'm just using Rusty as an example because he's on this board.
Thanks for clarifying.
But I'm talking about any active member that would sit in that position. Would you be? Would your office be conflicted?
I think that I would have a different legal counsel if I was over there anyway.
Well, you would have different legal
But I'm
counsel.
talking about representing me and the chief.
We wouldn't represent you and the chief before the commission. We would represent the commission by statute. And then the commission decision, if it's an appeal, we would represent the commission's decision on the appeal.
But when there's an appeal of termination, or you're representing the city, or
No,
you're not?
Management is represented by outside counsel by statute, and we represent the commission, which means.
If there's an appeal.
Right, so we're representing the commission's position. So what you've got is, down the line, a potential situation in which an active member of the board has been disciplined. He has appealed that procedure and was not satisfied, or was satisfied, and the matter has been appealed further to circuit court. We would be representing them. We're representing the fund here, and I don't think that the relationship with the individual member is going to create a conflict for us that would require us to step down. But I also know that that's the type of thing where if I mean, it's really, the member can't act for the fund. The fund acts for the fund. If the fund says we would like to have an opinion as to whether X can occur, then I don't see the situation, the tangential situation of the disciplinary action impacting our ability or conflicting with our ability to give an opinion as to whether we believe the fund can or cannot do something. So I don't see that as the type of a reconcilable conflict that would cause us to step in.
Even if he was gonna be terminated, like Mr. Miller said, I mean, that's pretty stout disciplinary action.
Well, I think there's so much, like a better conflict of interest in him being the board's attorney. I mean, you know, y'all have sat here and told us that, and you know, nothing against you, that he is the city attorney.
Right.
You know, he is the city attorney. All right, I mean, and y'all was talking about the workload. All right, this is gonna put more of a workload on that office, and can we get our whatever we might present to you in a reasonable manner, which probably not. So, I mean, I just don't think it's going, I think it's going to wind up costing this board more money in the long run than it would just, I mean, you know, here in the last 3 to 4 months, we hadn't used the attorney for anything. That's kind of calmed down. So, you know, I just don't think it's going to be a good decision to use someone that's already telling us, I'm the city attorney. I'm not, you know, first of all, I am the city attorney. You know, my workload is to the point to where, you know, gosh, what am I gonna do now? So I think it's just silly to even, for it to even be on the table myself.
Any action I do at the Little Rock Police Department to be terminated is not gonna be questioned or debated at our board meeting.
Well,
It's a totally separate thing.
Rusty, that's not the only conflict of interest. The man has told us he is the city attorney. I am the city attorney first, men, now before I'm y'all's attorney. So if something comes up, I'm on the city side, and I'm gonna probably view this law for the city.
And if issues come up that we know is gonna be a conflict, we'll have
Well,
legal
then if
representation.
we know all of that, why
let
are
me
we?
finish.
Okay, hold on.
Okay.
That we do not have to pay for each month, only when we need.
Well, if we know all of that, why are we
Don,
even wanting an
Don, hold on
attorney? If
just a
we're
second.
smart
Don,
enough to
Don,
realize that, you know,
Don,
that,
I'm
why
calling you
are
out
we
of
wanting
order.
an attorney?
Don, rest of you have the floor. Anything else?
No.
Okay. Ferris?
Mr. Chairman, we have a little experience to draw on here. This fund didn't start yesterday. We can go back for years. So we have some experience to pull from. I'll tell you one bit of experience that I've noticed in recent years is sometimes there are complicated issues, and sometimes there are non-complicated issues that we make complicated. And to me, this falls under the category of not such a terribly sophisticated issue to get through. First of all, you have 5 elected police representatives on this board, of which have a decision to make each and every time. Is there not a conflict, but is there a potential conflict? If we think there are, then we have already private counsel. We have the city attorney. I think no one here would have an issue with the statement that very competent, very experienced, and if he thinks there is a conflict, he's going to let us know. So, to me, it's just pretty simple. We got a fund that's millions and millions of dollars underfunded. We've got legal bills, legal fees that range anywhere from $20,000 a year to $100,000 a year, roughly. And we've got an opportunity to get our day-to-day legal counsel, a vast majority of it handled for free. Where you got all of these people who are quite capable of identifying a conflict and would be more than willing to do it. So that's my 2 cents worth.
Sarah?
My concern is that because of the cost of outside legal counsel, we have not had representation in a lot of the meetings. And so when there are not conflicted questions that come up, what ends up happening is they get addressed to the administration office, and we are not legal counsel. And so then we don't really have anywhere to go other than the outside legal counsel, or we don't get a question answered. And so I would like to get back to where we at least have legal counsel present at the meetings. And for that reason, and to be able to, you know, call upstairs and ask a question, I think it is nice to have someone on the city's attorney staff available to us for those types of questions. But I do think that there will potentially be conflicts and that those would have to be addressed to outside legal counsel.
What? Rusty, did you have
No,
your
sir.
hand?
No, sir.
I'd just like to remind Sarah that your city attorney can sit in on this public board meeting anytime he chooses to. You don't have to be general counsel for the board to sit in and provide you Mr. Moore with his expertise. But that doesn't make him the general counsel of this board. But I just want to point that back out.
One comment, one question, Tom. Because of our nature, just as we get prepared to vote on this, can Sarah and I vote on this particular item because of the fact that you do represent the city? This is a question that just came to my mind. I don't want to be conflicted before we even get started.
I don't see a problem with voting because you're voting on an administrative matter for the fund in your role as a member of the fund.
Okay.
And we've made it clear, in the letter, we've made that clear who our first client is.
And the only thing, my final comment, and Paris, you're right about the history, and a lot of it was before I became manager, but I hope that the conflict doesn't end up being that we just don't agree with an opinion from the city attorney, and thus we feel like then we're gonna, you know, there's and that's the thing I'm more nervous about. I think we're all smart enough to know when there's potential conflicts of interest, and even though I do think they could be a concern, but you know, there's going to be an occasion, I don't know, that Tom or Kim's going to say, well, this is it, and I want you all to know I'm not going to try to be, you know, unduly influential with the city attorney, but there is obviously, we're the two appointed officials also in the city. So I just, as we go forward, I think we've all got to be cognizant of that relationship.
Can I just say one other thing? Because Kutak Rock did say that they did not want to be in a position where this fund was opinion shopping, kind of to the city manager's point. Like if we think an issue is something that can be referred to general counsel as opposed to separate counsel, then it needs to sit with general counsel. They didn't want in the situation where general counsel came back and gave an opinion that maybe the fund didn't like, that then we go to the other council and have them competing against each other. They didn't want to be in that position. They wanted an issue to be either their issue or the general issue. And so I just want to keep that on everybody's mind.
Don and Steve,
Well, in the past, you know, we couldn't even agree with our attorney that there was no conflict. So I can't, you know, we can sit here and say, oh yeah, we're gonna do that, but oh yeah, we probably ain't. And it's gonna wind up costing this board more money, it's gonna wind up costing more conflict, and you're shaking your head no, but I think you've been with some that didn't agree with the other attorneys. So, you know,
Steve.
That's what it boils. It's just going to boil down to a vote. If there's enough votes one way or enough votes the other way, then you know, why don't we just bring it to a vote and stop all the time talking?
Well, I have two more, and then I'll call it. Steve.
Okay, well, I'd just like to say that it's not my concern that this board will not be able to determine most areas of conflict. And I believe that the city attorney would probably advise us of most areas of conflict. I believe he's required to advise us. However, it is my concern that there may be an area of conflict that we're not aware of, and perhaps even the city attorney isn't aware of, that could come back and bite us at some future time, where if we had our own legal counsel, we could pretty well leave it up to him to make that determination. And so I think that's the problem that I see, is that, and I'm not saying that you couldn't determine for yourself, I'm just saying that there might be something that you never thought of, that perhaps our private legal counsel could so.
And the one thing, again, that I was thinking about, and it just goes back to the money that we owed you all. And Tom was very clear, that the city attorney was very clear that 3 years was all we had to go back. And the outside counsel came back, or our counsel came back and said something totally different. And that, that's, and then what Sarah was referring to, opinion shopping, if all of a sudden we found something else that we hadn't been doing right, and Tom comes back and says, well, the city's only obligated, or the attorney's office comes back and said, we're only obligated for 3 years, then, I don't think it'd be appropriate to send that to QTAC and say, well, give us your thought. So, and that's what.
Along those lines, that's exactly what I was talking about, is that when the city attorney, if he was on general counsel, came back and said, well, 3 years is all, y'all can go back. Nobody on this board is an attorney, and there sits one. And they probably say, well, I guess that settles that. We can't go back for 3 years. And everybody would go on. And
Lee.
First of all, Mr. Chairman, we in this room would recognize that would be a conflict right off the bat. We would refer that to QTAC Rock, much we did. And second of all, we have 2 issues here under 5, under city attorney here. B, resolution for widows to remarry. C, discussion for formal policy on death benefits. I do not see a conflict with that at all, with the city attorney drafting those resolutions. That would save this fund thousands of dollars in attorney fees by drafting this. I don't see the conflict in that at all. But back when it comes to the probation fee, I would detect that as a conflict, and I would do that. But this item right here we have on the agenda today is saving this fund thousands of dollars in attorney fees.
Okay, last comment.
I do want to make one.
Well, right there for me, I had
Go ahead.
you can choose and pick anything to decide whether it's a conflict of interest or not. I mean, yeah, I agree. I say that, this is a very, very bad conflict of interest, but on these 2 issues right here, I would go along with his opinion and consider it not a conflict. So you can pick and choose. And you talking about $100,000, that was because we had a lawsuit. Our bill is not $100,000 every year. So you can exaggerate or you can pick and choose. The man has said it's a conflict of interest. He has said it's a conflict of interest.
Okay.
The city manager has said, I'm worried about the workload on there. So, anyway, why don't we just bring it to a vote, get it over with.
I think we're about to. Mr. Chairman, just brief comment regarding the shopping around issue. I go to the doctor frequently, and I can't remember that I've ever, for that matter, only got a second opinion, but I would never tell anyone that I never would. If something occurs that I think is serious enough, what my doctors say just simply doesn't make sense to me, I always keep that option open. But I think it's, again, this is a simple matter that would make complicated.
Okay. There's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Oh,
Can I hear a motion?
Yeah, I gotta remember.
Yeah.
It was
Can
to
I hear a
not
motion
use.
again?
the motion is to
Not use him as our
No,
attorney.
hang on. Can you read it? Tell me what it is.
Well, I made the motion
Okay, not to?
not to use him as our board attorney.
Okay.
all those in favor of the motion signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, motion fails.
Was that 2
Mr. Chairman, I would
need a
make a
count
motion.
I didn't hear Sarah's vote or your vote.
I said no.
Do you have the count?
Is it 2 to 5? 2 not to use them, and 5 to deny the motion?
All right.
Not to use.
Are we through with that?
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion.
I have a motion that I'd like to make too.
Well, I heard him first, so. Ferris?
I have a motion to approve the letter of engagement. Just
Have a motion for what?
approve the letter of engagement.
I say.
What? Have a motion for discussion now?
If you let me get it out. There's a motion and a second,
If we
discussion.
approve the letter of engagement, does that mean that, I mean, we can approve it all day long, but that doesn't mean that he's gonna.
Okay, let me clarify for you, Steve, and clarify for the record. I make a motion to approve letter of engagement and to engage Mr. Carpenter's office for general, co-general counsel for this fund, or for general counsel for this fund.
I want to clarify, you said two things, it's general counsel.
He will be general, as general counsel, we also have, and I want to make it clear for the record, that we also have QTAC Rock private counsel.
Can I speak now?
So, like, he's made a motion.
Yeah, are you gonna second that?
Well, he was just.
Oh,
I
Steve.
asked the question that he clarified, and then I wanted to speak.
Well,
Okay.
he's waiting for a second, Steve. You want to second my motion?
No.
I say.
All right, it's been moved and properly second, the amended motion. Steve?
Okay. I'd just like to state, and I would have made it in the form of a motion if I had the opportunity to, but I should have known that the Ferris would make that motion at its earliest convenience.
Sure you do.
However, I would like to suggest to this board that it makes all the sense in the world, to me anyway, and I may be the only one.
Steve, is this a discussion on the motion?
Yeah.
On the motion that's on the table?
Right. That this motion should not be passed until we have our legal counsel on record right now review this document. I mean, this is a document prepared by an attorney, and it would seem to me that we want an attorney to approve it. I mean, Ferris himself said it was a contract. Are we going to enter into a contract without consulting?
No, Steve, I didn't say it was a
Ferris, hold
contract.
on.
Yes, you did say it was a contract.
Hold on, Ferris. So, your question is, should our outside legal counsel review this before we engage in it?
Right.
Tom, did you say earlier that did you run this by QTAC at all?
No, I used the QTAC Rock example and make sure that they weren't in any conflict with each other.
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion?
Read the motion.
Uh,
You read the motion for him.
So, did you weren't in here, the motion is to basically engage the city attorney's office as general counsel.
Second?
It was second, yeah. Okay, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like for my vote by name be on in the minutes that I voted against it.
Okay.
Instead of a 3-2 vote, I'd like for my name to be voted against it.
Well, I would agree, but we've already seen that.
I won't forget it.
In the minutes.
Okay, next item is resolution for widows to remarry.
Right. There is a statute that allows this board, after certain steps are taken, to permit the continuation of survivor benefits after a spouse remarries, if they're getting those benefits. So it means that they've been married to a member, the member has died, and the spouse chooses to remarry, they can continue to receive the benefits. There's a process that has to be gone through, which ultimately by statute, requires review by the Pension Review Board and also requires approval by the City Board of Directors. The statute is 2411-105, and I attached that to the memorandum. Kathy, these are in the packet.
5B.
5B.
It's in here.
Yes. Yes.
Does that not also have to go to the actuary?
It's got to go to the actuary first. And what I've got for y'all is a short memorandum that explains it, and then a resolution. The first section of the resolution notes that it takes a 3/4 vote for this to occur, which would be 6 members of this board. If there is approval by a 3/4 vote, then it goes under the steps in section 2411-102 to the review board. It's sent to their actuary. Their actuary makes a determination as to whether the obligation is actually sound, or if they can fund it within a 30-year period of time. If they make that finding, then the executive director takes that to the review board itself. Assuming that they approve, then it comes to the board of directors of the City of Little Rock for approval as an election to increase the benefit.
So I see Board of Trustees, where does it say it has to go to the City Board?
City Board, wasn't aware of that.
That's in the statute itself. It's on the first page of the memorandum. However, before the election is effective, the election shall be approved by a majority vote of the governing body of the political subdivision, if any, after the plan meets the requirements for benefit increases under 2411-102.
And who would that be?
It would be the City Board of Directors.
Over here.
So this board approves, and the actuary says the fund can afford it within 30 years, then the PRB has to approve it, then it comes back and goes to the City Board.
Right.
And this, so the person would have to have been a qualified recipient receiving benefits currently, and then they remarry.
Right.
The way it is right now, do you know that they quit receiving that money?
Upon remarriage.
And that's what we're trying to change with
And
this.
so we have the widow's affidavit every year that says they're not remarried
Remarried,
and
yeah.
all that, yeah.
And this would change that.
How long, if this is approved by the board, how long would it take to get the city board to act on it?
The real question is, how long is it going to take to get the actuary to act on it?
I don't know, it's a good question.
He said at the last meeting he was at that he would include this, if I understood him correctly, in the work that he's currently doing for us.
Then,
Would they not have
There-
to
there
finish
is-
the review though, since we've submitted, since the year ended and we've submitted the new PRB report, I think he would have to be completing that study before he could express an opinion on the actuary.
I think that I'm correct when I say this, there's very little work for him to do because there is, and he stated this himself, there just is no substantial cost.
And so, but before we could even send it to him, we would have to have the minutes of this board approving it, right? Which would be at least another month to get those minutes approved to be sent. I'm speaking to the timeline. is what I'm
Right,
speaking
but
to.
doesn't it have to go to the city board after?
Yeah, but this board, if this board, let's say
Right.
we made a motion, we got the majority vote at this board, then we would have to have the approved minutes to send to the actuary. So it would be at least the next meeting.
But would we send it
before
to
would
the
go.
actuary before we send it to city board?
Yeah, because the
Yes.
step is the
Okay.
actuary, then the PRB, then the city board.
Okay.
Tom,
yes.
I'm looking at the resolution. So that second, whereas such election is not effective until it has been approved by a majority of the governing body of the political subdivision. Does that mean any benefit increases?
Any benefit increases are impacted by 2411-102, and this is one that is.
Because it's an extension of benefits to a different group of people, I think, but,
Well, what's just a regular benefit increase? Is that impacted by 2411-105?
Not 105.
102, I mean.
for beneficiary.
I guess what I'm saying, I've been doing this 10 years now, and we've never taken one thing to the city board.
Well, 105 is the one that requires it to be taken to the city board, not 102.
And what does 105, does 105 just deal with survivor benefits?
Survivor benefits that upon remarriage.
Okay, so regular benefits do not fall under 105?
No.
Okay.
Is motion in order?
I have a question. To the people that this would benefit, would this be retroactive? In other words, if they already remarried and weren't receiving those benefits, would it go back retroactive and pick them up?
The statute says that they may elect to continue paying survivor benefits to spouses who remarry. So I would suspect it meant from this point forward.
It wouldn't be retroactive.
So if they've already ceased, you're not continuing because they stopped, is that what you're saying?
Right.
I don't know that.
Now, I didn't research that issue, that's.
I don't know how many there would be, but.
Would the actuary not have to know that in order to make a ruling? Would we not have to know, like, how many widows affidavits have we gotten where they did remarry? We
Oh,
have
yeah,
no
you
idea.
have to know that, but you know, he's gonna know everything else that you're asking. I mean, he's gonna.
Yeah, I'm just
he's
thinking
gonna
we
look at
wouldn't
it.
know the answer to that
He
question.
would have to approve that. Well, I mean, when it gets to him, he's gonna go, well, what about the ones that's already remarried and lost their benefit? Is it gonna go back for them?
Well, if it's gonna be retroactive, we got, well, people gonna have to start paying. I wouldn't imagine.
I don't think it's retroactive, is it?
It
Well,
doesn't
that's what
read
we're
that
saying.
it's retroactive.
Yeah.
So
So the
that means
board
it's not.
hadn't passed, I mean, until the board passed it, it would get done, but.
Well, I mean, well, it's true, but, if it's, can it be retroactive, or, well, that's our attorney.
Pension statutes in general are to be liberally construed to affect their purpose, but you got to look to the language of the statute, and the language of the statute speaks in terms of continuing paying benefits to spouses who remarry, and that's only done after approval of the board of directors. So I think that this is off the top of my head. I think that's a pretty strong argument that it's not retroactive. I do think that's one of the questions the actuary will ask probably.
Could you add it in the resolution?
Sure.
That would specify that it's not retroactive, that it's from the point,
You would have to somehow.
to any marriages that occur subsequent to action by the city board of directors?
You can put it in section 3.
Good question, Kevin.
And what you could put is at the end of section 3 on line 26, to the surviving spouse of the member who remarries after the date of this resolution.
Line 26.
Oh, they have. They have, because they knew they lose their benefits. Where did you say you put that, where at?
At the end of section 3.
On
Would you
what
read
line?
that one more time? At the very end.
Section 3 would now
Spouse of a
read-
member.
Section 3 would now read, the Board of Trustees requests the Little Rock Board of Directors approve this election to continue survivor benefits to the surviving spouse of the member who remarries after the date of this resolution.
Should it read after the date of approval by the city board?
Yep.
I think it should be.
By the city board of directors.
Okay, you wanted to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve the resolution with the amended amendments.
Second.
Now, can we do this, Tom, before we get the,
You've
This
got to
board
do this
has to do
first.
it first.
okay, all right, I see, you're right. All right, this motion is second, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion
I'm gonna oppose one just to have somebody oppose it.
And then the third thing that we were asked to deal with, is a policy for funeral expenses, and I want to give a little background on this. In one of the former statutes, it referred to these payments as funeral expenses, and an amendment to it, it referred to it as death expenses. And said that it's to be not less than $100 or more than $6,500, but it still refers to it as for the funeral expenses. Two things came to mind as we were looking at this, and I go ahead and bring them up on the front end, but just because they came up. First, there was an act that was passed that said that the payment would be made to the surviving spouse, or if no surviving spouse, to the estate. But that act was passed before the act was passed that increased the amount to $6,500, and it is not a codified act because it has been ruled by the codification board that it was undone, that they're in conflict, and that the latter act that increases it to $6,500 controls. The second thing I found out is that these are taxable. This is taxable income as a benefit, and there's nothing you can do in terms of some sort of exemption from federal income tax without a federal act, which I don't think you could get, but you could ask for an exemption under state law from federal income taxation, which would at least help the member to some extent. Now, what I have done is in section 1 of the resolution, notice that you're going to pay the $6,500 because that's the uniform amount that you've chosen to pay from the notes that I had the last time. I attach a policy to accomplish the payment, and then I add a protective section 3 that if at the time of the active or retired police officer's death it is impossible for any reason whatsoever to make the payment to the designated person or funeral home, payment shall be made to the estate of the deceased. So it's a catch-all if we get into a situation where nothing can happen.
What happens, and we talked about this yesterday.
Well, I was just writing a note. I talked with Abdul as far as how we would handle that if we were.
Let me ask the question,
Okay.
so you know what I'm talking about. The issue is, you know, I mean, my mother recently passed. We had a life insurance deal that I could sign over directly to the funeral home, but that was not taxable income.
Right.
Because this is taxable income, the concern is if we made a payment direct to a funeral home and we're not withholding taxes, how do we get this? We have to issue a 1099 still to the person, a 1099-R to the person who the benefits were on behalf of, even though they didn't directly receive the benefits. And do we have the ability to do that?
Well, what Abdul said off the top of his head is we would have to run the payroll on the deceased as we normally would to the estate of, and just create a garnishment for the full amount payable to the funeral home. And that way, that would run through there, and then we would cut the check to the funeral home.
Okay. I just want to make sure there was a way to do it and still be taxable to the payee, because that's the difference in that situation.
Okay. The second page is to set the policy. Y'all don't have, I couldn't find a formal policy that you have, and the statute requires one. So this is basically it. That you'll pay the $6,500 on the death of an active or retired member to defray funeral expenses. Payment to the fund, from the fund to the person or entity selected by the member shall be made upon presentation of a certified death certificate and approval by the Board of Trustees. Designation of the person or entity to receive the benefit shall be on a form substantially the same as set forth below, and that's the third page. The designation of the person or entity to receive benefits may be changed at any time prior to the death of the member by completing a new form, so it can be changed. And then I add that thing, if it is not possible to make the payment designated at the time the benefit is claimed because the person or entity no longer exists, then payment will be made, shall be made to the estate of the deceased member. Now, I circulated this to Kathy and Deborah and Sarah yesterday just from a logistics standpoint, and am assured that having some sort of a form filled out at the time of retirement is not a problem and that it can be changed. What this form basically would do, and that's on the third page, is I, John Doe, direct that any funeral benefit to which I am entitled as a member of the fund shall be paid to, it can be paid to his wife, it can be paid to his daughter, it can be paid to his estate, it can be paid to Jones Funeral Home upon my death. This payment shall be made when the fund is provided with a stamped copy of my death certificate. This payment is to be made for the purpose of paying or defraying the cost of my funeral arrangements. That's to keep the fund in line with the statute that these are for funeral expenses. And then it just gets notarized, and then I've got a place down at the bottom that gives the name, address, and then social security number for the member, because that's who will be getting the 1099 for the monies.
And this is just when there's not a spouse involved, right? Or is it with anybody?
This would be anytime.
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 So
So
you're
we
saying
would collect this
that
at the
needs to
time
be
they
on
sign
file
up.
with Kathy.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, so that at the time they register for retirement, we would have them complete this form. So I'm a little confused. So down here at the bottom where it's got name, address, that's the beneficiary's name or address?
No, that's the member's name.
Where do we get the beneficiary's information?
Well, that would be in that line, shall be paid by the fund too, and
The name of a person, but we need to get their information.
yeah, we need to get the information there. That's why I put substantially
Okay.
the following form, figuring that,
Okay,
let's get the information you need, and then y'all figure out how you want it done.
okay.
And to use the Grady Anthony situation we just developed, had the policy already been in place, he could have said, I, Grady Anthony, directed it shall be paid to my daughter, and signed it and had it notarized, and then there would have been a clear question as to what to do.
And since Grady Anthony did pass away, we are, upon approval here, we're gonna just cut that to the estate of right now.
Good. I'll make a motion to approve the policy.
Okay.
Okay, well, all right, so the policy, or the policy and the resolution?
Resolution.
Well, the resolution has the policy and the form attached to it.
Okay.
Okay. Any further discussion? All
So
those,
wait, who did it? I'm sorry.
Lee made a motion,
First and second.
any further discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
On 6, Mr. Chairman, Roger called this morning, having somewhat minor matter
Sure.
issues.
So that's tabled next month. Item
Is it-
7.
Roger, all right?
What'd you say, Rusty?
Is Roger okay? I didn't hear.
Yeah, I said minor.
Yeah, minor, yeah, it's some kind of minor, relatively minor issue.
Any further discussion on 7A?
Mr. Moore,
Just a minute.
we talked about the supplement that we was wanting to give the members this year. And I think that you said the money would be available in June, and that a separate account would be put in place for that money. Is that going to happen?
We are, there's a separate count. I don't know how much is in it.
Can we have a report on that next month so
We can.
that we will be able to discuss if we want to go ahead and start looking at what type of supplement?
So you just wanna know how much you gained in the first 5 months?
Yes.
Or did we transfer
I'm
that to?
confused, I mean, because it's
We
not gonna
transferred-
change, it's a set amount of money, right, the 400 and
Set
some
amount.
thousand?
Yeah, but did we transfer the total amount at the beginning of the year?
I think we were putting it in a special project, I need to look and see if it was all transferred, but we were putting it in a special project pending a decision by the board as to whether it was gonna
Yeah,
go
so
directly into the fund.
You're right, so it's there, so that's the way we did it, we put it there, you're
If the
right.
board would like, this committee could meet next month, 30 minutes before the regular board meeting, and we could start looking at how we want to put this money into practice. So we would meet at 8:30?
8:30?
For the discussion of the supplement.
8:30 next month.
Yes.
Before we have board meeting.
The board meeting.
where are we on Jody? I think weren't we holding up? Okay, they had to have the report that you all got in here about a month ago, so I guess they need to be contacted again for a scheduling of.
Well, I mean, during the process, I think of updating all the PRB reports, for all the funds, so I don't know where this is in the line,
Okay.
I'm not sure what the question was. I mean, we know the supplement amount, so we can bring that, but I don't know that there's a lot more to discuss regarding lot fee until after the PRB reports are released for the year ended 2011.
Okay, and when would those be, you think?
We don't normally get,
Trying to remember.
I mean, we normally get like the turn back allocation and all that in the June timeframe, the earnings, in the June timeframe.
Okay.
Is there any way to give that supplement just to a group that is in the lower end and not to extend it to everyone getting retirement?
Well, that'll open up a can.
Yeah. Maybe our attorney could review that.
The board can I assume the
I
board can
think
set
he's
a
already
policy.
given us an opinion, Steve, on that previously.
I guess that should be a topic for our discussion at the 8:30 meeting.
And Sarah, also, if you would give us an idea that if we did $100 supplement, what the total would be, and if we did a $200 supplement, what the total would be.
Okay, and so we're talking about something that would go to all members and beneficiaries, or only, it's gonna be different depending on what group of individuals you're
We
trying to
said
give it to.
all last time.
All, okay, all members and beneficiaries?
Everybody receiving a benefit. Don't y'all, didn't we decide that?
We discussed it.
Alrighty, we've already dealt with B. I have no report. Lee?
I have no report.
Sarah?
Okay, 10A.
Mr. Chairman, if I can
Sure.
go ahead and go get the thing redone so y'all can sign it.
Okay. As of the end of April, the total asset balance, was $43,951,523. Of that amount, $22,931,806 was managed by Stevens. The remaining $1,020,312 was in the bank at First Security. The April drop balance was $22,731,690. As we turn the page, you'll see the revenues for the month. We had a property tax deposit of $399,466 on line 4. So year-to-date, that's $653,366. If you look up just one line above that, $166,667 is the share of the $500,000 sales tax money that the city is contributing to the fund, and that's the pro rata share through the end of April. Total revenues before any investment incomes or losses for the month, $480,412. Year to date, $1,055,447. Expenditures, which are primarily benefits, but not including the drop benefits, were $599,078. $2.4 million year to date. So the loss before drop and before any investment income is $118,667 for the month and $1,367,000 year to date. There were drop disbursements of $182,000 during the month. Year to date, just a little over $1.5 million has been withdrawn from drop, which increases the loss then to $300,667 year to date and for the month, and $2.8 million year to date. Investment income for the month net of the quarterly investment manager fees was $89,568, which is just a little over $2.4 million year to date. So, including investment earnings and drop, the net loss for the month was $211,000, and year-to-date is $449,000. If we turn the page, the non-benefit expense for the month was $2,703. So year-to-date, that's $12,726.93, with the majority of that being, printing, postage, the lobby fees, and then the fees for y'all's attendance. We have, you'll see the death reporting service, the $360, and we have actually seen the benefit of that. We've had some notifications before we were made aware of them, so that is working the way that we had hoped it would. Attorney's fees in January, or I guess, January and March, the total was $270. There's none in the April report. And then on the next page, we do have, okay, yeah. I guess if y'all want to approve that, then we can go on to the second part about the change in the pension.
I make a motion to approve the treasurer's report.
Second.
It's been moved properly second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by aye. Opposed? Okay, Sarah, Tim.
10B, the changes in membership status. There's none to add to the pension rolls. We have 3 to remove from the pension rolls. Peggy Griffith, Mary Gashot, and Grady Anthony.
And to approve death benefit.
Yes, the death benefit to Grady Anthony's estate of $6,500. And then we have an update on the Adine Garrett.
June, July, September, December. That's $600.
Huh?
$600 she owes. Okay.
Yes.
Who's handling that?
Well, you want me to go, I can go to her house, I guess, and collect it, that's what you wanted. Well, we just,
She is paying every month now, but the
Well, I was about
150, but she's
complimenting
not
her.
catching up.
She knows I'm on it.
Not any extra.
It was last year, she didn't pay these.
I was about to say, what a good job
Notice
you're
that,
doing.
didn't you?
It got lowered.
Okay, is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve the, or to remove Ms. Peggy Griffith from the pension roll, Mary Gadshaw and Grady Anthony, and to approve the $6,500 death benefit of Grady Anthony, and to extend the board's condolences to their families.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by aye. Opposed?
Lonnie's got a question here. Mary Gashaw was Fred Gashaw's wife.
Les,
All right, so why
Les Gashel.
is Fred Gashaw dead?
Les,
Les
Les.
is
Les is alive.
He's dead.
All right, well, why would they be sending something to you to join the FOP if both of them dead?
2 gas shots.
Let's see.
There's 2.
2 gas shots.
Yeah, there's a couple of them.
Oh, okay.
Question. At what point does this board want to take any kind of legal action against Ms. Garrett? If something has been adjudicated through court, she has to pay, do we just go ahead and contact the judge that decided that and say she's not paying it and put her in jail, or?
We're waiting for our investigator to exonerate me.
When
$600 now.
When Mr. Rowan was handling it,
But the good news is you're getting $150 a month out of her. If you put her in jail, you may not get that.
Yeah, she is. I mean, the last several months, she has been paying consistently. We've been receiving the 150. She has not caught up to be current, but we are getting 150 now
well,
each month.
if I were an active duty officer and were in charge of handling this, I probably would have called by now and maybe asked for a brief meeting with the judge. And asked that she would be held maybe in contempt of court because this poor old pension fund we've got is very underfunded, trying to survive. And it was his order that she's violating.
Yeah,
Well, that was just a thought.
I guess it's a good thing you're not then, aren't you?
All right. Let's see, where are we?
Member comments.
Member comments. Other business, we have the results from the election. Over 300 ballots were mailed, 175 were returned. The vote was 97 votes for Kevin Tyndall, 78 votes for Don Wood. We had Kathy and Debbie that opened and counted the ballots under the supervision of our internal auditor, Gene Bruner. And James Arnold will be replacing Steve. We do have the ballots if there are any questions or issues that wants to review.
How many votes did I get?
We had some ugly comments about you. No, just teasing.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the election results?
I make a motion to approve the election results.
Second.
A second. Any further discussion?
Who seconded?
I did.
Sarah. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Chris, did you want to say something? I thought you, okay. Any other business?
Mr. Moore, I'd like to say something. I think this board has done a great job today for the pension board in addressing the widows to marry and also for the death benefits. Because I think that's something that all the people who are my age and above really look at as doing business for us. So I appreciate y'all taking care
I
of
do
that.
have one thing, also, Steve and Don served on the board for 2 years, and have put in a lot of work. Steve, an absolute tremendous.
I can't hear you, Chris.
I said both y'all have served on the board for 2 years, and have worked hard, and especially you, the website and all the work that you've done as secretary. And I want to thank you personally for the work. I appreciate your service to the board.
I'd like to say that I've enjoyed my 2 years term on the board. Also. And I look forward to this board making many other fine decisions in the future.
I'd like to thank them both for being on board too. Appreciate it.
Well, and it's sad that no more people voted than what they did. That kind of shows what interest it, and you can put this in the minutes, what the membership really thinks.
That's pretty consistent if you'll look back at what the turnout is each night.
I'll echo your comments. Anytime you volunteer is very important, and the service that you render is very important to your colleagues. So we appreciate your service, both of you, and I'm sure you will remain actively involved in continuing business. With that,
Did anybody sign the engagement letter to get that?
Y'all wouldn't want to reward us by giving us our computers without us.
I'm just about to bring it out for you.
Oh, that didn't go nowhere.
well, what was the, there is a policy on that.
We have the depreciation,
Huh?
we have the depreciation figured, so if he wanted to purchase it, from the board.
And I think
Or
that
from
we
the
at the
fund, I
last
mean.
meeting authorized that.
We did last meeting, it's 3-year depreciation, and 2 years already been depreciation,
Right.
only was 1 year.
Authorized it for me.
Oh, okay, well, so I guess we need y'all to authorize that for Dawn as well.
I make a motion to authorize that for Don as well.
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed. So, did you understand what we did?
Oh, I didn't hear none of that.
Okay, the board policy is, that if you would like your computer, that's our policy to allow it, but we have to figure out depreciation, and you said, Debbie, you said y'all have done that?
I have it in a spreadsheet, and we can go back to the office and see, it's figured over 3 years, just straight line depreciation.
So you can see that figure, and you can, if you choose to do that, it's up to you. Okay. Any other business?
Move that we adjourn.
I'll second that.
All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.